throughout the years, our clients, our friends would say, you were so brave to do that. And for me, it was never about courage or bravery. It was just, this is what I want to do. Like, I just did it. And it's funny. People are like, so you started companies without any thought. And I was like, yes, I guess that's how I roll.
Welcome to Kindred Spirits, the podcast that brings you unfiltered conversations about life, work, and everything in between.
Join us as we share stories, spark connections, and celebrate the magic that happens when kindred spirits unite.
Almira, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We are so thrilled to have you here. You have accomplished so much in your career, from starting a PR agency to consulting on thought leadership and communications, and also coaching entrepreneurs. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey and where it's brought you to today?
So I started, it's funny when you start to have these podcast conversations and you'd realize just how many years you've been doing this for. So I'm taking you a little bit back in the journey. And I always say that the catalyst for my career was actually the co-op program that I had in university. And it allowed you, so I think it was third year university, you worked in your area that you wanted to be in. For me, it was communications. And I'd been desiring of being in PR anyways, but it gave me such a strong foundation to actually be working in the industry even before I graduated. And that's one of the pieces of advice when, the younger generation are looking for jobs. I always encourage them to do that, or a practicum, because you leave school with experience, which is amazing, right? You're not having to deal with the uphill battle, if you will, of having no experience and trying to find a job. And for me, it also led to having amazing contacts, which is another foundation of what I do sort of preach is your network. Your network is your net worth. It's your career worth, it's your connections, right? And so that led to me, I worked for Future Shop at the time, which obviously is now Best Buy, and I got some incredible experience. And I also worked for the federal government. And one of the things when I was working for the feds in Ottawa was that I connected with the regional director of my department here in Vancouver. So I asked him, I'm finishing this co-op, can I come work for you on a contract in Vancouver? And it was great. So I've actually been in the industry since I was 19, and I'm 46 now. So it tells you a while. And that led to subsequently, when I graduated university, I was recruited into a top PR firm and got incredible experience there as well. And so much of my career, and again, what I preach is about attitude, looking for those opportunities, making yourself available for the opportunities. And I networked with the PR industry organizations, made some amazing contacts, and it's always just led me to be able to have a really consistent, sustainable, and growing career path. It basically makes my life easier, right? You have your network, you get to do that. So it's here in Vancouver doing that. And then I went abroad for a few years and I worked for the hottest beer company in the UK. Started as the secretary because that's the role they were looking for. But I said, yeah. So I saw a sign on the tube in London, and it was for the beer company. And I'd actually worked for Molson, our top brewer here in Canada, at the previous PR agency. So I literally cold called the marketing director. I was like, hey, I want to work in beer. Why not? And he said, I'm looking for a secretary. And I said, I will be your secretary if you let me do PR. And he was like, on a secretary salary? And I said, yes. And history started to be made there. So I ended up being promoted to head of global PR within a year. And it was amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I traveled all over Europe on press tours. I had teams all over the world reporting to me. I had a team in the UK that I was managing as well. And to be 25 years old and get to do that. And because we were the hottest beer brand, companies like Selfridges were like, can we put we had amazing beer bottles. They were incredible. They said, can we put them in our store windows? People were coming to me for this. And normally you have to pay 10,000 pounds for these opportunities. And they came to me, and life was amazing and in flow, and I learned so much. And then they were a little surprised when I did this, but I really wanted to move to Australia. So I quit my job at the beer company and I moved to Australia, and I loved it. Australia, Sydney is my spiritual home. And that's one of the things that I deeply value in life is the opportunity to travel. So that's, knowing I was really great at PR, but wanting to travel, that was the path that led me to entrepreneurship. And of course, when I moved back to Canada, nobody would actually hire me because the thinking was that I'd been gone for too long. So I had to consult. And that started my entrepreneurship journey of really, one, being my own boss, having my own company, but also living life as I desired to be with the opportunities to travel. And I'd also did a stint in Cape Town. So again, more traveling. I've often, worked on the road in Argentina, or, basically what all the kids do now, but doing it at a really early age. And then when I was in Vancouver, I founded a larger PR firm with my then business partner. And we had 3 offices and around 50 people, and grew it into the hottest boutique PR and social media agency in North America at the time, which was amazing.
Wow. 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 There is so much to dig into there. That is quite the journey. And side note, I have to say, Sydney is my favorite city in the world too. So love that you said that.
Oh.
Okay. So I have to ask, so what is it inside you that gave you the confidence to make those decisions, like accepting that role as a secretary and then just picking up and going to Australia? These things that a lot of people would be so scared to do, or a lot of people would think, I'm not going to be a secretary. I'm better than that. I have amazing experience. What is it that led you to trust yourself and take those opportunities, knowing that they were going to lead to something greater?
Yeah, I think it was really about vision and desire. And, we talk so much now about the universe puts those desires in us. And for me, it was going to London and working in advertising or PR. And I'd actually wanted to go into advertising, but to do that at my university, you needed to be able to do math and econ, which I can't do. Eventually I was like, this is not going to happen. So, which is how I ended up in communications and PR. But again, the universe had other plans for me and gave me an extremely sort of successful career in PR and entrepreneurship. So going to London for me was always something that I deeply desired. It's funny because people, even when they look at our entrepreneurship journey with the company that I previously had, Jive, I did an exit in 2018 and sold it to my business partner. But when we started Jive, throughout the years, our clients, our friends would say, you were so brave to do that. And for me, it was never about courage or bravery. It was just, this is what I want to do. Like, I just did it. And it's funny. People are like, so you started companies without any thought. And I was like, yes, I guess that's how I roll. Right. But keeping in mind the other piece of it was that I couldn't get a job when I moved back to Vancouver. I was either overexperienced, or again, the feedback was that I'd been gone for so long, I wasn't hireable, which was crazy because when I went to the UK, again, part of the perseverance or the desire to do it, I went to a bookshop and bought all of the magazines so I could know who the journalists were. And I put together my media list of journalists in advance to be prepared for the interviews, or to literally be able to do PR the first day that I started. And that's something that, again, is something that I teach. I'll get students or people wanting to get into the industry and they're like, how do I get a job or be better at what I do? And I'm saying to them, well, what research have you done? Have you looked at a magazine? Do you know what the journalists are covering? I mean, that's essentially what PR people do. We get our clients into the media. So what prep work are you doing to do that? And so for me, it was funny to come back to Vancouver and being told I was not employable when I went and did everything that I needed to do to learn the UK media to be prepared even before I got the job, and look at where I landed. And so when I came back to Vancouver, nobody would hire me. I just started consulting. I had 2 contacts left in Vancouver because I never thought I would move back here. And I called them and they said, great. And what they actually loved is that I had UK contacts and could do UK PR in Canada. And that's how I started. And then I also went on to Craigslist and found another client. And I also did random jobs like mystery shopping at Rogers Video. That's how long ago this was. And, you have bills to pay. And so I did that, but it was never, when I was mystery shopping at Rogers, I never thought it was beneath me. I thought it was hilarious. And I think people love that about my story. They're like, hold on a minute. You have all of this success in your career and your life, but you worked as a secretary. And I even had one temp job in London where my job was literally just sit at the front desk and receive packages. I think at that point I was like, okay, I'm done here. I need to use my brain a little bit more. But I don't consider it beneath me. I think of these things as valuable tools. And fundamentally, if you need to pay the bills, do the thing that pays the bills and do it with joy and happiness. And when I started my consulting company here in Vancouver, I was so thrilled and so happy and found this new path. And I guess it's what we put down to embodiment now, finding the joy in your work and seeing where the path leads you and being really open to it. But me going into entrepreneurship was not a concise decision, whereas, the travels and going to London and Australia were. But again, people are like, oh, you're so brave to do that. And I'm like, I literally couldn't get a job. Nobody would hire me. So what is the thing that you do? And it was like, okay, well, I'll just go and get contracts. And that's what I did. And then my business partner at the time, she's from Vancouver, and she worked in the UK and in India. She was actually a Bollywood producer, came back to Vancouver, again, couldn't get a job. So she did the same thing, got contracts, and we got to be friends, and we had a very different skill set. She loved to do biz dev. I loved to deal with the clients and to manage the operations. And so it was a natural fit. We looked at each other like, why are we not working together? And then we did. And then we set our intentions for moving forward. What would be our sales targets? What did we want to do? What was our vision? And that's exactly what we did. So again, less of a brave thing on our part to start Jive. It was, we need to, consult, but then now we're going to do this. And it really just worked out. We were on that path.
I love that so much. It just really flips like the way most people would look at that situation on its head. Like, so many people would be rejected for jobs and think that that means they're just not good enough. And instead, you actually took that and ran the opposite direction. Like, okay, I can't get a job here. That's fine. I'm going to go start my own thing. I'm going to go consult. I think so many people get stuck in feeling like they're not good enough to go and be an entrepreneur or have their own business. Whereas, like you just explained, if you actually really think about the mindset piece, you can look at that situation in a completely different way. And I want to dig into a little bit about your passions, because I know that there's been some threads throughout your career that have connected all of those different experiences. So what are the passions that have fueled you in your work and are still continuing to fuel you today?
For me, travel is huge. And then also freedom and flexibility. And, we're talking so much more about human design now, right? And I'm a projector, and we're all about flexibility and freedom, and we don't want to work 9 to 5. And so as I learned about my human design and how I'm built, it's kind of less of a passion, but understanding, yes, this is actually what I'm made for. And the ability to call my own shots, I have worked a job after I sold the business. One of my clients offered me a job, and it was great. But by the second year, I kind of had like, why do they keep asking me to do this stuff? And it was like, you are employed here. This is what you do. And kind of realizing it's not necessarily sustainable or in my personality to continue do it. But what I learned from that job, like, I needed to learn more structure in terms of like structures to add to a business. I've been doing my own thing for such a long time that it was almost like I needed to put my fingers back into somebody else's pie to see how they did it and how to improve myself. So again, going back to perspective, it's a learning opportunity as opposed to, I had to go get a job, And so going back to the passions, travel, absolutely. Spending time with my family. My son is 5 years old. I want to squish and pinch him, and I want to be available for him after school to hang with him, because I'm not going to get this time back. And again, going back to the freedom and flexibility piece, when we started Jive, we decided that we were going to be virtual. So everybody worked from home, and we would have contractors. And people thought we were nuts. Like, I think our clients were like, behind our backs were like, are they just not making any money because they don't have offices? Whereas now I'm like, we were visionaries, we changed on that way. And freedom and flexibility is also equates with not having to pay office rent and having that expense on your back. And how do you become a more profitable business? How do my passions and desires tie into the life and the business that I want to lead? And in that vein, now I'm really moving into the business and PR coaching area, where I'm working particularly with female entrepreneurs to structure and grow their businesses in their dreams. And at the beginning of one of her sessions, a client had said to me, she goes, my values are freedom and flexibility. And then her next question was, so can I talk to you about office space? And I was like, hang on a second, my friend. How does this align? If your goals are freedom and flexibility, you will be tied to the office space and have the expenses. And it was funny, she never thought about it that way, because in her mind, you naturally go get office space. You build a business in this cookie cutter model, right? And so we have to tie it back to what is it that I'm desiring in life, and how do I have my passions? And I remember actually the year that we hit $1 million, I wasn't feeling fulfilled. it was, life felt a little bit empty. And one thing that really brought me joy was yoga. And I've done yoga for so many years. And I really actually just wanted to do my yoga teacher training, not to actually teach, but to deepen my practice. So we ended up getting funding to hire 2 interns, but I found like 2 amazing interns, gave them part of my workload. Obviously, I supervised them, and it created the capacity for me to do my yoga teacher training. And that was the year that I hit $1 million. I don't think that it's a coincidence, and also we talk so much about the nervous system now. So what was I doing to my body when I was resting or relaxing or tuning into myself or tuning into the universe, whatever it might be? I mean, there's so many things there, but where I allowed myself to pour into myself and I hit $1 million. And I think that's really significant to show us about what's possible. And again, I say the young kids today, they're flexible, they're doing things, they want to do gig working. And I think it's a fundamental change in our way of work now, or in our career, that you can't have it all. You just have to think about it differently. And I think that's a signature in terms of what I've done is that how do I do it differently? And how do I find pleasure in the everyday through, spending time with my child, but also working with my clients? Like, how do I continue to do that as I move forward?
Mm-hmm. So with the coaching that you're offering now, can you share with us some of the strategies and approaches that you use to help these female entrepreneurs start to build their personal brand, or starting to build a brand image around themselves? Just any kind of advice you might be able to share with our audience who might be in that same place, starting to build something.
First of all, is to believe in yourself and in your expertise. We as women, we have so many limiting beliefs, and we've played small, to fit in. We've been conditioned to do that, or we just don't recognize how awesome we are. And that's really the first piece, particularly when I work with coaches, is they will have an absolutely amazing program that literally nobody else is doing. I've never seen it anywhere, Googled it, can't find it. And yet they're not recognizing just how amazing they are, or their expertise, or even just the freedom to say whatever they want on their social media channels and to show themselves and their expertise. There's a lot of visibility wounds there, but there's also simply not recognizing how awesome they are. And that's literally the first piece in building their brand. Tell me your story. Let's package it up to share with the world. Then let's also package it up to share with the media. What are you trying to get across? Where is your brilliance? How do we showcase your brilliance? I have one client, she calls it's Heart of Sales, and it's about the heart-centered method of sales, but she doesn't really talk about her story or her successes in there. She actually used to work for a international hotel chain as the sales director, and she was like minting it and doing so well. She was so incredibly successful, but she hadn't even brought her own successes into her own story, nor did she realize she was such an expert at this new way of selling. And so we worked on that, her story, helping her see her value, her brilliance in what she had already done and what she was now bringing to the table, and then also how to actually share that. So be it through social media, or her messaging, or writing an article for Medium, or consulting on other people's coaching programs, talking about sales in a different way, and your energy management and exchange of energy when you are doing sales. Because so often, particularly female entrepreneurs, are like, oh, sales is gross. Sales is actually really fun. I love doing it. Like I said, I'd hated it before, but when I was forced to, I did it, and I fell in love with it. You have to do sales in order for your business to survive. It's really, really simple. How can you do it with joy, with peace, with intention? And so going back to exactly what my client was teaching, but she didn't see her own brilliance. And then she can also go and share it with other women in other programs. And now she's on fire.
Wow. For those women who are struggling with the visibility wound that you mentioned, and maybe they know their worth, but they're just afraid to share it, what would be a place to start to heal that wound?
Tapping scripts. And again, as a projector, I have inconsistent energy. So if you make me do a tapping script every day, I would be like, no, I'm not going to do it. So it's not like an actual tapping script that I have to take out. Sometimes I will just tap and do my story. So it's EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique, where you tap on specific meridian points on your body. You can literally find, how to tap on YouTube. So just follow along. but I'll have my own story. And through it, you actually do talk about the things that have been holding you back or the pain or of something. You can also journal it. When you get it down onto paper, sometimes we're like, I just don't want to deal with those feelings. I just want them to be over, but they do need to be released. So when you release them through the pen and through your mouth, through your throat chakra, and also make your body feel more relaxed and comfortable, you could talk about being, I was bullied as a child. So I was bullied as a child and then I wanted to hide, but now I know I'm so amazing. And you literally tap on the meridian points as you tell a story. And slowly your body will relax, because all of this stuff is actually trapped in your body and in our energy centers, and you release it and let it go. It might sound really complicated, really easy. Find it on YouTube, or actually on my Instagram Linktree. I do have a tapping script for visibility. I also have a tapping script for power, because that's another piece that women are not naturally comfortable with at this point. We've been taught a very masculine way of power and leadership. And so I think women are afraid of power, or what it will mean if they're powerful. And powerful and power is actually the power within our own bodies and what we have as individuals. It's a beautiful, gorgeous power, and often very feminine, that we're not aware of. So tapping on those scripts, tapping and using those scripts, relaxing your body, allowing the emotions to flow and to be released, actually brings you to a place of neutrality, where then you're able to look at yourself and you're like, whoa, I'm okay to be visible. And yes, stuff will come up, tap on that, but giving yourself permission to be visible and to heal those wounds, because that's literally what you're doing, is you neutralize them, you're healing them, but using those modalities to be able to do it, and then to be like, I'm super amazing. Now what am I going to say, and what's the story I'm writing next?
I love that. I have heard so much about tapping, and I've tried it a couple of times, but this has inspired me to give it another go. So I'm going to check out your Instagram, and yeah, I think a lot of people can probably just go on YouTube and find different how-to videos on there, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And there's also some tapping, like some free tapping apps and things. But again, things don't need to be complicated. And I think there's such a barrage of information, particularly on Instagram right now, about do this and do this and do this. For me, just simplicity. Just tap your story or write your story. And just when you look at those wounds, that's what actually allows them to heal. Because when you look at them, it doesn't give them power anymore. And you're acknowledging that it happens. But we also see ourselves and how much we've survived and how we're now thriving. That gives us a fresh new ability to look at just how amazing we are and to go ahead and do the damn thing that we need to do.
Absolutely. Are there any other spiritual practices or daily routines, things that really help you stay grounded and stay in the best version of yourself?
Meditation. And I also do what I call an energy burn. Like, there's so much energy, or also I'm actually working on a number of projects right now that by the end of the day, I'm just like, okay, my brain is completely fried. I'll just sit there and I'll let all the thoughts and all of the feelings just happen. I set my timer for 10 minutes and just let it go. And I literally feel the energy or the things just melting away from me. And after those 10 minutes, I feel like I've come back to such a neutral, calm place. So I usually do 2 energy burns, one in the morning after I drop my son from work, from school. You're busy doing the mom things. I'll come home and I'll do an energy burn for 5 or 10 minutes just to get into a very clear space. And I'll do one at the end of the day. And that also helps me go into meditation. That's another thing. Should be meditating for longer. Even I recognize that, but some days you do the best that you can. So for me, I prefer the meditation energy burn. And also I'll do, I'm a certified yoga teacher, so I know about some really great poses to be able to get emotions out of your hips. That's an area where I recognize, and women, we all carry our emotions in our hips. So those are the 3 ones that I go to. Other people talk about scripting, and you literally write the life that you want. And then throughout the day, I just practice gratitude. That's a big one.
Okay. Those are all such good suggestions. So another thing you mentioned a little bit earlier is how your network has really helped you. For example, when you moved back to Vancouver, and also finding your business partner. So for people who are looking to meet new people to add to their network, or are looking to reconnect with other people in their network as well, what would be a good approach or something that you would recommend for people to be able to connect with community?
So depending on where you're at or what industry, finding your industry associations. So for me, I'm in communications and PR. For me, that was the International Association of Business Communicators, the BC chapter, and the Canadian Public Relations Society. And I joined IABC, the Vancouver one. It's more active here in BC than it is in Ontario. I think in Ontario, CPRS is more active. But when I joined IABC here, I joined the events team. And then I got myself to be in the role of booking speakers so I can meet more people. Then I would volunteer at the events and I can meet other people. And so where is it that you can volunteer at whatever age that you are at to be able to meet people? And then going to business events. BC Business has great events. Business in Vancouver has great events. Or maybe you're a super passionate musician. Go to a music fundraiser. Where is it that you could potentially find people? And it's not to say that I'm going to go to this event just so I can meet business contacts, because sometimes eventually that just gets really boring, right? But maybe it's even about creating your own. Have you been admiring some amazing women on Instagram? What about suggesting that you have a Friday coffee as a group? What can you create? Even just asking people about, I'm really looking to connect with these types of like-minded people. Is there anything you can suggest? Particularly as women, we talk all the time, right? And we love to pass along suggestions to each other. So that's certainly one way where you can go. And then again, when I was at my business, I was part of something called Entrepreneurs Organization. It's the world's largest organization of entrepreneurs. And you have to have a minimum $1 million US business. And that was an entirely different experience, as I was then with people who'd achieved that level and had different opportunities and issues in their business to be able to learn from them. So it was pure learning. There were speakers, but it's just great networking, not just for business. And actually, you're not allowed to solicit in the organization, but just to meet people, to have different collaborations, and to be learning from people who've done even more revenue than I have. And so for me, there was a lot of personal and professional development in that area.
I completely agree. It really comes down to just taking initiative. There's so many opportunities out there to meet people in so many different ways you can go about it. The only reason that Melissa and I met actually was because we were both part of a Vancouver-based Facebook group, and I reached out there and we connected through it. So it just leads to so many awesome partnerships and friendships.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been such a fun journey. One last question for you here. So this is a question that we love to ask all of our guests, and it's inspired by our name. So the podcast is called Kindred Spirits. And our favorite quote says, "To discover a kindred spirit is to find your heart in the heart of a friend." So Almira, our last question for you is, how do you know when you've found a kindred spirit?
Gosh, I love that quote, by the way. I just feel inspired and excited and aligned. Or sometimes you meet somebody that you don't naturally get that right away, but as you lean into the friendship, you discover so much and you just realize you're meant to be together. And I think that's particularly for me is that when these wondrous people come into your lives, perhaps there is an acquaintance and you just start talking to them more. I did a Chopra retreat last year and met this amazing woman, and we just started talking on the first day, but literally we were like best friends by the end of the week. She lives in San Diego, but we talk multiple times a day by WhatsApp, voice note. And our relationship has just emerged into this like spectacular friendship where I can't imagine not having her in my life. And it's like my heart resonates. I think that's the long answer to say is that when you have those friendships, like my heart resonates and radiates with the connection that the two of us have. And that to me is the kindred spirit.
That's so beautiful. I love that so much. Thank you. So where can everybody find you and connect with you after this?
So on Instagram, it's Almira B, Almira B. And on LinkedIn, it's Almira Bardai. But the best way is probably Instagram.
Okay, perfect. All right. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been so nice to chat. You have provided so much awesome advice and insight. So thank you for being a part of our community.
Thank you so much for having me. And, even just talking about the kindred spirits, Melissa reached out to me on LinkedIn, and then I had a great conversation with her. And then me and Melissa had a great conversation last week. And now here we are. So Melissa did exactly what kindred spirits do and taking the initiative to reach out. So there you go. Thank you again.
Absolutely. I'm so glad it all worked out. And I'm sure this is not going to be the end for us all.